What's going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, and joining me as always, Jordan Ellis. Jordan, how you doing, mate?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. We had a big card. We had a card this past weekend. I don't want to say big card. It was meant to be a big card. It was meant to be a big, important fight in the heavyweight division. Last minute, the main event gets scrapped between Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis, and Anthony Smith and Devin Clark bump up to the main event. And pretty much the rest of the card stayed the same, and it really was not kind of what we expected, especially when we were talking before. We weren't too impressed by the caliber of this card, and to see it lose its main event was a pretty big blow. What did you think when you saw that?
Yeah, and I thought they actually might cancel the card altogether, but the UFC, they're always adaptable, aren't they? And they managed to save these cards. So well done to them. They managed to save it, and they're kind of lucky that Anthony Smith was on the card because he has got some name value. We are used to seeing him headline events. He's headlined quite a few now, so it went unusual to see him bumped up. It's just the fight he was in. It was kind of a comeback fight, and it was what it was in the end of the day. But as always, there was some moments for younger guys to come up and make a name for themselves and take the opportunity, and some of them did. And yeah, it was a good night of fights overall, and looking forward to breaking them down.
Absolutely, and so we'll jump straight into the main event between Anthony Smith and Devin Clark. And this was, like you said, Anthony Smith's make or break fight. He needed to get this win here, and he did. And you know what? He looked pretty good doing it. He got hit real early in the fight. As soon as he got hit, he managed to take it to the ground, tried to set up that twister, couldn't quite get it, turned to his back, ended up sinking a triangle in and getting the submission there. What were your thoughts on how the fight went down?
It's exactly what he should have done. At the end of the day, there is levels to this game, and Anthony Smith is still a top level guy, and Devin Clark hasn't proved himself to be anywhere near that yet. And it was a fight I was surprised Smith took. I think it was a drop outside the rankings even, but you've got to get back in the win column, and if you can get paid for taking people like Devin Clark on, fair play to him. But it was very easy night to work. I expected it to be. He did exactly what he should have done, and heading into this fight, I think he was saying, "Oh, he's ever felt going into a fight," because if he lost to Devin Clark, his career's over. There's nowhere really to go. You've been beaten by an unranked guy who's not shown himself to be of that level yet anyway. So Smith did well. He did exactly what he's meant to do, and now he's on to the next one.
Absolutely. And talking about the next one, I saw Jimmy Crute wants that fight. He wants to fight Smith next. I believe after the bout, Smith did call someone out. I'm blanking on who it was, but he had a matchup
Paul
in
Craig
mind.
it was.
Paul Craig. So that's another good one for him. Both these guys are top 15 from memory. I think Craig is as well as Crute. Both these guys at least fringe top 15. And if he can get another win off one of them, he cements himself really strong in that top 10 where he needs to remain if he wants to have another run at the title. But as far as performances go, it's pretty flawless. He did get tagged, but yeah, like I said, pulled off a really impressive submission. Devin Clark didn't really get an opportunity even to fight, He was pretty much taken down from the get-go, and he was controlled for the most part. Even when he wound up on top, he ended up getting submitted. So not the best showing from Clark, but it wasn't much of a showing at all, was it?
No, it's just a bit early for Clark. I don't think he was originally matched up against someone else. Can't remember who it was now, but it definitely went someone of the level of Smith, and he's took this chance, and it hasn't paid off for him. But you've got to take these chances. COVID times, as we say all the time. Things happen, things pop up. If he beats Anthony Smith, is he top 6 or 5 or wherever he is. So it's a huge opportunity. You've got to take them, but it was levels on that night, and Smith did what he's meant to do. Clark weren't able to pull off the upset.
Yeah, you're right. But two guys that proved they would have had the full kit of skills in this fight was the co-main event between Miguel Baeza and Takashi Sato. Both guys looked fantastic in my opinion. On the feet, they both looked crisp. I think Baeza just really showcased his high-level ability because he was controlling the dance for the most part and landing really good shots on Sato. But in all fairness, both guys were doing very good work on the feet. Eventually, he gets it to the ground, Baeza does, and he pulls off a submission. I think it was his first submission victory I think that's what they say on the broadcast. But if it wasn't, I could be wrong. It was a pretty impressive submission. What do you think?
Yeah, it was good. I missed quite a lot of this card because I was watching the Tyson fight, and we'll speak about that later. But this is one I went back and watched because I was hearing really good stuff about Miguel Baeza. I even heard Dana White saying, he can be our guy for Puerto Rico, and that's a big compliment. Puerto Rico is a really big fighting, market. it's huge, especially in boxing. So to have an MMA star, from that area is something I'm sure the UFC are looking for, and he might be the guy. And he looked flawless. And as the fight was progressing, Sato, who was fancied by quite a few people, just weren't able to keep up with them. And then as soon as he got it to the floor, it was he's relentless with that submission attempt. So brilliant stuff, and he's definitely one to watch for. Out for that's Matt Brown and Sato now 10-0 and only 28 years old. So yeah, very interesting. I think he's Puerto Rican. I'm sure I've seen
Yeah,
something
that's
like that
right.
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at his thing and it says American, but yeah, really impressive. He's a standout from that area, and yeah, on to the next one. He's one of them who's took the chance to come main event, and he ran with it.
Yeah, like Dana White was saying, they do want that Puerto Rican star to really open the gates in that area for the UFC. And, it won't be long until they give Beza ranked guys, I imagine. I mean, look at Kazmat Shemaev. He's getting ranked number 3 after having one fight in the division. Welterweight's pretty open, especially with these guys that have been at the top for so long, having a bit of a losing streak and slowly coming down. The top 10's changing every day. And you got guys like Michael Chesser, who's had a couple of fights and jumped into the rankings. I think Beza, 2 fights time, probably fights a top 15, top 10 guy. So it'll be interesting to see if he can keep up his winning streak because, hey, he's looked pretty good doing it, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has looked good, and it's just there's no rush. He's young, he's 28, and you just need to shoot showcases now. There's lots of chances. He'll get his chances to fight whoever, and he's just got to dispatch them as he's been doing. But he looks great, and I'll definitely be tuning into his next one. I'm sure a lot of people will after that one. He looked really good.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, like you said, it was in a showcase spot being the co-main event, so lucky for him, he got that opportunity and he capitalised on it. So it's keen to see what he does next. Did you see the heavyweights before that?
What was that Parker Porter one?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see that one. How'd that go?
Well, apparently, I didn't see that. I was watching the boxing, but apparently it was a 3-round slugfest where the two went to war, and apparently it was a really exciting fight to watch. So, hey, hearing that about heavyweights is always a good thing to hear, isn't it?
Yeah, and I seen the reason I didn't go back and watch this one is because I seen Parker Porter last time and I weren't that impressed. With what I seen, he got absolutely dismantled by Chris Dawkins, if you remember it, it weren't the most impressive debut, but he managed to get a win, and hats off to him because I didn't really think he was cut out for UFC level, but obviously he is, and on to the next one.
Absolutely. What other fights did you catch on the card?
I was more interested in the undercard for this one. I really thought there was some really exciting fights on that one. So the first fight tonight was one of the best fights tonight, in my opinion. Nathan Maness against Luke Sanders. I thought Sanders was heavily favoured in this one, and as the fight was going on, Maness was eating a lot of shots, but you could just see that he was able to take it. And when he hit Sanders, he was getting a reaction. So it's just one of them. Although he was losing a lot of the fight, you could see that he was probably going to win because he was able to get his power off and really hurt Sanders. And then in the end, he gets that choke. I think he looked brilliant. I think he's looked really good since he's joined UFC. And that was a big upset, I think.
Yeah, right. I've seen the betting odds here, but it might be the updated betting odds. And like you said, Sanders was a favourite going into this one, and Maness took the victory. I believe I saw this one. I just can't remember how the fight went for the life of me. But the one I do remember seeing, and I will bring up, was the Gina Mazzani versus Rachel Ostervich fight. I think a lot of people tuned in for this one. Twitter went pretty wild when this fight happened. And all I'll say on this is I don't think Ostervich is UFC caliber. And I think it's no secret that she's not UFC caliber. I think a lot of people know she's got a negative record. I think her record going into this was 4-5. Now it's 4-6. So that screams alarm bells there. And she just didn't look good. She got dominated for the most part and eventually got TKO'd with body shots in the third. Did you catch that fight?
Yeah, it was actually a fun fight. I thought Gina Mazzani looked really good, dropping down to flyweight. As she was saying in the build-up, it was a really tough, camp for her. She was 15 weeks of camp and really being stringent in her workouts and her diet and things like that. She got down there, especially after last time. She didn't look good against that Julia Avila, but she just seemed to pick up the pace as the fight was going on, even though she was tired. Putting it on Rachel Ostervich, who, in fairness, landed a few nice shots, but she was never really able to put anything together. And then to put that stamp on it and get that lovely body kick finish was, beautiful stuff from Mazzani. And as you said, Ostervich, she's going to get more stick than she's probably due, just because she's a popular figure and she gets a lot of attention. But 4-6, these aren't the type of records you want to see in the UFC. And she probably needs to go away. And if she wants to stay in MMA, she needs to go somewhere else and pick up a few wins and then come back. Maybe it's not saying that UFC career is over. I just think for now, as Gina Mazzani's shown, you can go away, work on your game, get some wins, come back a better fighter. And I think she needs to do that now. I don't hope, but I think the UFC will cut her, and I hope she goes away and gets some good work in.
Yeah, it would be nice to see her go off and get some wins and come back and then have a little bit of a winning streak in the UFC, because her UFC career as a whole hasn't been very great. So, yeah, hope that happens. Is there any other fights here you want to talk about, or we'll jump on to something else?
I just want to speak about this Chinese fighter. Just before you come on, I was making a point of learning how to say his name, and I forgot already. It's Su Majuri. I've probably just butchered that. Apologies, but I did try. And he looked brilliant. He dropped down to flyweight and against Malcolm Gordon, and he's 5'8", really, long for the flyweight division, and he looked sensational. It gave me kind of flashbacks of Conor McGregor against Marcus Brimage in his UFC debut. It was that good. He was just putting hands on him, and Gordon just didn't know how to deal with it. He only lasted 44 seconds, but he ate a lot of punches, and I've seen people blowing up after that performance. So he's definitely one to watch out for. Just 24 years old, and I think he could cause some damage in that flyweight division. Really good fighter.
Yeah, I didn't catch that one, but I'm definitely going to go back and watch it, because flyweight's an open division at this moment. I mean, look at Brandon Royval. 3 fights in, he's fighting a number 1 contender fight. So, hey, if he's as good as you're saying, I'm really keen to see what he does next.
Yeah, he's one of the stars of the night in terms of, people. You've got Miguel Baeza, and you've got this guy, and he looks sensational. And I definitely advise going watching it back, and definitely advise watching his next fight, because he looks like one to keep an eye on. And as I said, 24, 5'8", if a flyweight, he's going to do some damage.
Absolutely, and that'll pretty much wrap up that card there. I'll let you pick. Do you want to do the boxing, or do you want to go on to the next week's card?
Let's go next week's card.
All right. This coming weekend, we have a key matchup in the middleweight division, which has changed hands 3 times now. Originally booked as Hermansson versus Till. It was then Hermansson versus Kevin Holland. And now it's Jack Hermansson versus Marvin Vettori, which in my opinion might be a better matchup than Kevin Holland. I'm actually quite excited to see this fight. And I do think Hermansson might take the win here, just because he's proven his skills over and over again. But Vettori is a serious threat. And if Hermansson doesn't come in with 100% of his game, this could be an interesting night.
Yeah, it's a better fight in my opinion. I think, unfortunately for Hermansson, he's kind of being shafted, because he's in that horrible middle ground where he's not fighting an easy fight. He's not fighting Darren Till either, so he's not getting the name value of Darren Till. And then Holland has also got a bit of hype behind him, and I consider him an easier fight. So Hermansson could get that name, get that hype, and by beating Holland quite easily, in my opinion. Whereas Vettori, he's a game guy. He's ranked. I've spoke to him previously. I've interviewed him for the site. He's a very animated guy. He's calling out everyone. He wants these big fights, so he'll just be chomping at the bit to get in there and try and take Hermansson's head off. And yeah, it's a really fun fight, and I haven't got a clue who's going to win. I'm going to study this through the weekend and see who my pick is, but it's definitely a better fight in my opinion than Kevin Holland. Yeah,
I mean, look at Vittori. He was meant to fight Amari Akhmedov. That fell through, I believe. Then he was booked against Jacare Souza. Big fight for him. And then all of a sudden, that falls through. Well, sorry, it didn't fall through. He gets swapped out because Kevin Holland gets COVID. And now he's fighting the number 4 guy in the division. He's been talking for a long time that he wants these top-ranking guys. He called out everyone, like you said. He called out Chris Weidman. A bunch of other names. I can't go through and name them all. But he finally gets his biggest fight to date. And I think the matchup he had previously with Jacare probably really well prepares him for this fight, because if you think about it, Hermansson's probably best asset is his ground and pound on the ground. His submissions are pretty decent. He's a good grappler, but it's the ground and pound. Vittori's probably his best asset is his wrestling. So if he can out-wrestle Hermansson and not get taken down, he's going to win the dominate there. If he keeps on the feet, I think it's pretty even. I don't really have a pick on the feet. But in terms of grappling, it's the top position that's going to define this fight. I can't see either guy pulling off some submission from the bottom, especially Vettori training this whole camp to fight Jacare where you can't have him on the bottom. I know Hermansson did it, but it's a dangerous game to play sitting inside his guard. So I think whoever can dominate the top position in this fight will win the fight. And I just don't know who that will be.
No, it's one of them fights. I think the bookmakers have got Vettori opening up as a favourite, which kind of surprised me. I think Hermansson, he doesn't exactly demand that respect from the fans and the bookmakers quite yet. But I think this is a really good fight for him. I think while the wider public might not know who Marvin Vettori is, I think everyone in the MMA community does know who he is, knows he's a dangerous guy, a potential title contender. He's probably, besides Kelvin, probably give Adesanya one of his best fights. He's as legit as it gets, and it's a much better fight, and I'm glad we're seeing it. And no one loses really, because Kevin Holland and Jacare Souza, they get pre-booked and they're on UFC 256, a pay-per-view card, a massive card, one of the final ones of the year. And everyone wins. We still get a good fight there. We get a good fight this week. It's worked out well.
I think someone does lose, and I think that's Hermansson. I reckon if he had got Till in the first place, like you said, the name value would have been there. If he got Kevin Holland, would have been a much easier fight, in my opinion. I just think Vettori's a much bigger puzzle to solve in a week than Kevin Holland is on a month's notice, So I think he loses out in this one. But if he gets a win here, I don't care who it's over. Any of those opponents he's meant to fight or Vettori. If he gets a win here, he pretty much puts himself in a title shot, in my opinion. If not a title shot, a number one contender fight against Whittaker. But either way, he progresses himself in the division. And why would you not want to take on one of these lower-ranked guys who are, on paper, easier fights to put yourself in that position?
Yeah, he's definitely lost out in terms of Darren Till's a huge fight. You beat Darren Hill, his record isn't perfect, but Darren Till's still like one of the best guys in the division. So you beat him, you're getting a title shot. This isn't going to be enough to get him a title shot, I think. But if he can get through Vettori, it's a main event slot. I'm sure he's getting paid really well for this. I think when we interviewed him the other day, our guy Ryan Jarrell interviewed him, and he's saying it's a chance to get paid. They are prize fighters. He's got to work. He wants to fight. He's had a brilliant camp. Why not? But he has lost out. I think if he can potentially face Whittaker in Marchish or that time, while Adesanya's challenging for the light heavyweight belt, the winner faces Adesanya next. It will time out nicely. It's just, as you said, this is a tougher fight than Holland. It's not a big as name as Holland or Till, so Hermansson, he's just got to get through this one.
Yeah, and on the other hand, Vettori did have that split decision loss to Adesanya. He's only got to have a split decision, or maybe I think Gaston was unanimous. Wait, did that fight get stopped? That went to decision, right? Yeah, no, it could have been stopped right at the end of that fifth. That was pretty violent, that one. But yeah, Vettori has a split decision loss to Adesanya, so they easily can sell a title shot. If he gets through this, I wouldn't even see them. They wouldn't even need to give him the Whittaker fight. If Adesanya's not going up in division and he wants to fight in January, or even if he's going up in division and he wants to defend in January before he moves up, he could take on Vettori. You could sell that like a rematch, a close fight. Hey, it wasn't the most exciting fight, let's be honest, but it was a close fight. So yeah, maybe they do that. But we'll jump into the co-main event. Ovince St. Preux against Jamal Hill. What do you think of this matchup?
It's an interesting one because it's OSP against another up and coming, young star who's kind of making a name for himself. And last time that happened, Ovince St. Preux, he knocked out Alonzo Minefield, and he weren't fancied in that, even though Minefield was coming off a loss. So don't count out OSP. He's an acid test for anyone, and if you're going to be putting him as the measuring stick, a lot of people are going to fall, and it's a really tough one to call. Again, I don't want to write him off at all, but Jamal Hill does seem to be a really serious fighter. So looking forward to seeing it. I'm not making me pick yet on this one, but really good fight. And OSP's in a weird spot right now because he's just getting matched against the next generation by the looks at 8-0. He's been knocking guys out. So yeah, what do you think?
I do favour OSP in this one. I know Jamal Hill's undefeated. I know he's got quite crisp striking. But I think OSP is more of a complete fighter in my opinion. And I think he's more experienced. Well, I don't think that. We know he's more experienced. He has way more fights. He's been in there with a bunch of different guys. I do expect it to be like his last fight where he took out Alonzo Menafield on the feet. Do I think he's going to knock him out? I don't know. I think he wins. I think he wins convincingly. I just don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I'm just quite surprised to see him in these matchups because In my mind, I know it's been a while since he's been at the top of his game, but he's still one of the top
Mm.
guys. I'm not sure how the rankings look for him, but I'd prefer to see him in there with the upper echelons than these fights. Is he even in the rankings? Yeah, he's ranked number 15, so I'd prefer to see him in there with the guys like maybe a Jimmy Crute or Paul Craig or Ryan Spence, Ankalaev, someone around them levels. But for some reason, it seems like the UFC are trying to build people off him,
Yeah.
and it didn't go well last time. I'm not sure it's going to go well this time either, just because if you look at Hill's opponents, it's a big jump from who did he fight last time? I think it was Clidson Abreu to OSP. It's a huge jump, and you don't really want to see them jumps, but it's where he's at, and it's up to him to go and take that opportunity. It's up to OSP to shut it down and maintain his ranking. Good fight.
Yeah, should be good. That's pretty much the only matchups I wanted to chat about on the card. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Um, I want to mention this heavyweight fight because I'm very surprised both of these people have been booked to fight a heavyweight again. So you've got Gian Vellante, who is a light heavyweight. I think primarily he looked. I think he looked terrible against Maurice Green at heavyweight. He come in, he had a pot belly. He just was unable to get anything off. He landed a few punches, but that was just Maurice Green running into them more than anything. And then Jake Collier, who we seen Tom Aspinall absolutely wipe out in his debut, and he looked terrible as well at heavyweight, and he's primarily a middleweight, and he's fighting a heavyweight again. So I'm very surprised to see these two booked to face each other. It's got to be like a losers lose leaves town type situation for these two, because I feel like at some point the UFC should force people to, this is not your natural weight class. You need to go down to light heavyweight and compete there, but apparently not.
Yeah, it is an interesting booking. I can't say I'm looking forward to it too much, but it'll be interesting to catch it and see what unfolds. I
It was just looking at the card, it stands out to me as a what the hell is this fight doing? I know during the COVID times we're having to make do with whatever fights we can get, but um, in terms of heavyweight fights, you could go and watch any other organization and get this level of fight or even better. So, it's a weird one, but onto another one, which is Jordan Levitt, who I think he looked really good on Dana White's Contender Series. I think he got a submission win there, and he's against a veteran in Matt Wyman. So that's something I'll be looking out for. It's a really tough UFC debut, and excited to see him in there. He's a fun fight to watch.
Absolutely. That pretty much wraps up this card. Do you want to jump on the boxing now?
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
go.
so obviously we had the biggest boxing card of the year. Well, probably the biggest boxing card of the year. Two veterans in the sport. Mike Tyson taking on Roy Jones Jr., both in their 50s, both years out from retirement, much longer for Tyson. But, both guys went in there, had a pretty... I would say they looked in good form when they came out. But Mike Tyson is still a beast, in my opinion. Whereas Roy Jones Jr. looks like he was showing his age a little bit. He was initiating the clinch a lot. You could tell he was getting tired. I thought Tyson convincingly won the fight. I maybe gave 1 round, max 2 rounds if you're stretching it, to Roy Jones Jr. But I know it wasn't officially scored. But yeah, I did give the fight to Tyson. What were your thoughts on the fight itself and the judgment at the end?
Yeah, I thought the fight itself was really impressive, especially from Tyson, just because 15 years out, he's 54 years old now. I didn't expect him to look that good, and it's one of them where people were fearing the worst going into this. Like Mike Tyson, he might get hurt or he'll just look terrible, but he didn't. He looked brilliant, and fair play to him. I'd be tuning into the next one, and in my opinion, he won every round, and it's a shame it weren't scored officially. If you can have Jake Paul against Nate Robinson as a pro boxing match with proper scoring and things like that, I don't see why you can't have these guys. And yeah, but really good showing from Tyson. I'd prefer him not to rematch Roy Jones, although the scores said a draw. It went a draw. We all know that. I prefer him to go and fight, someone who's more of a heavyweight, maybe Evander Holyfield or someone of that ilk.
So you're not interested in seeing the Anderson Silva matchup they've been chatting about?
I'd rather see Anderson Silva against Roy Jones Jr. I think the problem with Roy Jones I think he was only £10 less, but he weren't in the best shape in terms of Tyson was 220 ripped. I think Roy Jones was 210 a bit flabby type thing. So if he could cut a bit of weight, get it on the Silva fight, that'd be more interesting to me than seeing Tyson against either of them two. I'd rather see Tyson in there with someone more his own size, a bigger guy who's not going to be afraid of the punches, because that's what Roy Jones seemed to be. He seemed to just be avoiding the punches, and he was very good defensively, but was unable to put any offense together really. So yeah, that's what I want to see next.
I'll suggest a good one here. Mark Hunt has a boxing match against Paul Gallen here in Australia coming up. I think it's next month. Yeah, it's next month. What if Mark Hunt gets a win there, and then they do Mark Hunt versus Mike Tyson and Anderson Silva versus Roy Jones Jr.? What do you reckon of that?
It's good. It's just I just don't know if Mark Hunt's got the name value for Tyson. That's a risky fight because Mark Hunt could do some damage. I know he's old, but he's still very active, and he's still got that pop in his shot. So I think they're gonna have to really pick their opponents carefully. Obviously Tyson, he's not what he was. As good as he looked, he's still 4 years old. He looked his age, and he was, but just still decent for it. So they just need to match him really carefully. And I like that Evander Holyfield fight. I feel like they're both in probably similar levels. Evander said he wants to come back. Yeah, I'd prefer that.
Yeah, okay. I'm excited to see what they do next. Both guys. I'm excited to see what the Champions Only League does next, even if it's not boxing. I'm sure it'll be something entertaining. We'll jump onto the co-main, which was, in my opinion, the best performance of the night by anyone. And it came from the most surprising person, and that was Jake Paul in his fight against Nate Robinson. Just wiped the floor with Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson was swinging for the fences, grabbing a hold of him, clinching up, breaking, getting tagged, swinging again, grabbing a hold of him. I think Jake Paul dropped him 3 times in the fight, and that closing sequence was bad. They shouldn't have let him get up from that second knockdown. You could see his eyes rolling back in his head, and he's got cleaned up straight after. I don't really want to take anything away from Jake Paul by saying that Nate Robinson didn't know how to box, but it was clear he wasn't the most skilled boxer in there. But Jake Paul looked crisp from what we saw. He's striking. He was really respectful in the clinch. He didn't throw any dirty shots. He picked him apart in the feet, and, I was really impressed.
It was an impressive knockout, but it's hard not to take away from him just because the level of competition he's facing. It's not even like he can go from this and make call-outs for, even Ben Askren or Dylan Dennis, who aren't even strikers, because he's facing people like Nate Robinson. I don't even know how much training he's done for that, because he didn't look like he'd done any boxing training. He looked like he just wanted some type of street fight. So Jake Paul, he looked good. He got a good knockout. All praise to him, but I just don't think it's really legitimate at all. I think facing someone like KSI would be the next step, not facing the McGregors or whoever he's calling out, because the level of competition he's fought is next to none. It really is next to none. But what he did, he looked good. He looked good doing. He got a really highlight reel knockout. He was dipping through punches. He was doing everything right. You just want to see him do it against, better opposition, even slightly better opposition, not even professional fighters, just anyone.
I agree. Like you said, wasn't the best opposition to put him in there with. But I will go on record with this, and you can hold me to it, because hopefully it does happen. I think if Dylan Dennis is to fight Jake Paul, it is going to be competitive, and I'll tell you why. Dylan Dennis is not a striker. He's a grappler. His striking might be alright. We saw him his last Bellator fight. He tried to show off his striking. He looked pretty good doing it. MMA striking is obviously different to boxing. But I think in a pure boxing fight, it's going to be very competitive. Jake Paul's been training hard for 2 years. How much do you think, all he's been training is boxing for 2 years. How much do you think Dylan Dennis has trained boxing in the last 2 years? Probably not even near as much. I think that would be a very competitive fight, and I think it's a great matchup. As far as McGregor goes, I think that's ridiculous. Let's not forget, Jake Paul's 200 pounds. Conor McGregor's 170 when he walks around, maybe. It'd be just a huge size difference. But if we're going to go skill for skill, Conor would smash him. There's no doubt. But Dylan Dennis is a very realistic fight. And also, I'll finish it off with Ben Askren. Please don't fight him, because I can't see you get knocked out again. And I don't think your striking's up to the caliber of someone who's been training boxing for 2 years.
Yeah, that's the problem. He's going from these, people who literally have zero boxing experience, like Anderson Gibbon and Nate Robinson, are not. Do you have nothing? So it's just hard to gauge him. Is he that good, or would Dylan Dennis actually box his head off? You don't know, and it's interesting because these guys like Ashton and Dennis, they're not known for boxing, but they probably do a fair amount of it. Just they have to. So that's the next step. Or if he wants to stay in that celebrity lane, I think KSI would be the best boxer he's faced. He was the one beat a professional athlete. So fair play to him. He beat an athlete. On to the next one. He's got to step up the levels. Now, I don't want to see another, someone who hasn't boxed at all. At least someone who's done a little bit of training.
I think I don't really want to see Jake go back into the celebrity boxing against other YouTubers. I get boxing against other professional athletes, even the Nate Robertson. I think that made a lot more sense than fighting KSI. In my opinion, that KSI versus Logan Paul fight was horrendous. Both guys didn't look like they knew what they were doing at all. Especially KSI, if I'm being honest, because in that fight, he was just swinging and swinging. And I watched it back before this one. All his punches were 100% trying to put power on Logan Paul. And that's just not going to work against Jake Paul, who's technically better than Logan Paul or him. I don't want to see that. I want to see Jake Paul fight a fighter next. I think Dylan Dennis is the right guy for it. And yeah, hopefully they book that.
Yeah, there's plenty of options there. I'm sure he'll get it, especially when he's. I think that there is a quiet or not so quiet minority who think he might be legit, and he talks well. He's a big star. I think there'll be a lot of people wanting to fight him. It's just about picking the right opponent. One where he's not going to get absolutely smashed, but there is still that intrigue, and it's the guys at Triller or Dazana or whoever's going to do it. They've got a job on their hands.
Well, the thing is that kind of doesn't go in his favor is he can't take a boxing fight against like a lower level pro boxer because there's just no money in it for him, right? He needs to take a fight against a bigger name. And so when he finally makes the jump into fighting boxers, he's going to have to fight the more talented guys because there's name value, you know what I mean? So he makes it hard for himself to be a professional boxer. I think these fights against MMA fighters are more realistic. We don't know how realistic until he gets in there with them, but they're more realistic and yeah, hopefully someone books it and hopefully we do see it.
Yeah, it's a good, especially the wrestlers. The wrestlers, does this wrestler who's been doing MMA for a few years, does he have better boxing than this kid that's more intriguing than a Conor McGregor or a Jorge Masvidal because they'll just smash him. Like it's disrespectful to think they wouldn't just smash him. So I think the Askrens, the Dylan Dennis's, the people like that does intrigue me because honestly, not being disrespectful, I'm not sure if they'd outbox Jake Paul, and that's just they don't do boxing as much. So yeah, as you said, that is an intriguing one.
Yeah, and before we move off the boxing to some news, I just want to shout out the first fight of the night that was on the preliminary card. And that was between Edward Vasquez and Irvin Gonzalez, and it was an awesome fight. I think it was a split decision. Yeah, it was a split decision, but both guys banged the whole time. There was zero clinching in this fight. It was all smashing each other on the feet. Yeah, really entertaining one. Did you catch that?
I seen the end of it, but I was switching between the UFC and the boxing, so I was watching the undercard. I was waiting really for Badu Jack to come out, so that's when I really tuned into that one. And yeah, but I heard that was a brilliant fight. And it's good that they have them on the undercard, whereas the top of the card weren't as competitive sometimes.
Nah, Badu Jack went out there and just obliterated Blake McKernan. Wasn't even close in my opinion. Yeah, I thought when the card started that a lot of these fights were probably really, really good bookings in terms of skill until it went further on, and then we got to that Badu Jack fight, and I was like, oh, maybe there's some typical boxing booking like. One fighter that's a champion caliber against someone not so high. But, good nights of fights. I enjoyed all the fights on that boxing card. So, yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah, I think Badu Jack almost felt bad, fighting that guy because that guy was 13-0, I think, but he'd never competed anywhere near that level. And my hat's off to him just for surviving because he absolutely got absolutely beat down for the whole fight. And he took everything, and Badu Jack was trying to finish him, and he couldn't finish him. He's a tough guy, and I'm sure he'll get, another big fight off the back of that. But Badu Jack it was dominant. It was hard to watch. It might as well just being a punching bag because that's just all he did. He just took the damage. But yeah, really, really fun night of fights. I thought the way they incorporated the the music stuff. Thought Israel Adesanya was really good on the mic. Snoop Dogg, I think some fans loved it, some fans didn't. It was, I think that's a lesson to, a lot of these boxing guys who are in empty stadiums right now. There is a way to, keep it entertaining, keep it fun. And I think he really did a good job for Triller in terms of the overall night. I think it was a big success. I'm looking forward to seeing what numbers it did, and I expect we'll get more of this in the future.
Let's hope so. Let's jump on some news. What have we got here? Probably the first thing I want to bring up. Khamzat Chimaev allegedly tests positive for COVID. The fight with Leon Edwards on the 19th is a bit up in the air at the moment. Do you think we see it? Do you think he recovers in the 2 weeks we have until then, or 3 weeks? Or yeah, it's about 3 weeks away. What do you think?
Yeah, by all accounts, he hasn't got COVID, or at least he's ready to go. That report that I think a lot of people are saying he's fine. So he might have COVID and they're just planning on powering through, or he might just not have it at all, and we've got a false report there. But I expected to see that fight. I think Kevin Holland, he got it just a few days ago, and he's booked a fight on the 12th of December, I think.
Yeah.
So even if Khamzat does have it right now, he's got a fair amount of time to recover. He's got 19, 20 days. That's a lot of time. It's usually just 10 days until you test negative anyway. So you know what he's about, Chimaev. If he's got COVID, he's not going to let him stop, and nothing stops him. So he'll be in there, I imagine, on December 19th, unless they have to drag him to hospital.
Yeah, well, hopefully we do see that, because it is a pretty important matchup, not just for him, but for Edwards as well, to keep moving in the division. And what other news you got to speak about today?
Did you see the video of the woman beating the man?
I did see
Russian
that.
MMA fight?
I did see that. Very even matchup on paper. I mean, that's crazy. I don't even know what promotion allowed that to happen, but hey.
Well, someone was just on the comments saying, I haven't even clicked on the article, but I'm guessing this is in Russia. And it's such a weird fight, but this is what they do it for, so people like us speak about it, so everyone clicks on it, and it definitely worked for them, and it's weird. It was weird, but I've just finished writing up an article on Mark Goddard comments on it, and he's saying it's shameful, it's abysmal, and it's things like that. And it does keep us in the dark ages. It's fun, to watch and click on, but there is a section of people who just still think this is what MMA is. It's a freak show. It's human cockfighting, and it's all them things, but it's really not. And these things don't do us any justice. But at the same time, it was funny to watch.
Yeah, absolutely, it was funny to watch. Anything else you want to chat about? Or are we wrapping it up?
We got it. Yeah. So. Let's see. No, there's not much else going on. I've seen a few people calling out Jake Paul already since them fights. I've seen Mike Perry, Ben Askren are both in there. I think Mike Perry would be a fun one. Obviously, I think he'd take his head off, but it'd be fun to watch. And I think it's going to be interesting now, because it seems like MMA is the direction he wants to go in terms of his next fight. So all these MMA fighters are going to be putting their hands up, because they're going to think he's cannon fodder, basically. They're going to think they're going to be able to make a big paycheck, a big name, and get a big highlight on the record by wiping him out. So I expect the next week or so to just be MMA guys, half begging for that fight, because it is a big fight, and it's interesting to see who's going to get it.
Yeah, I think it'll be like after that fight happened, Aljamain Sterling tweeted at Floyd Mayweather, and he was like, "Hey, I'm in Vegas. Let's fight. Let's do it." But I don't think that'll ever happen. And I think, yeah, like you said, it's a big payday for these guys. And hey, throw it out there and see. Maybe he takes the bait on one of them, and they can go make a lot of money. Aside from that, not much else to speak about. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll speak to you next week to recap all the action.
Thanks, guys.